something was profound that we read yesterday. The four things Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in Bhajan Rahasya. This is the weakness of the heart, attachment to things that are not related to Krishna, duplicity or hypocrisy, envy of others' progress, which leads to slander when we talk badly of others, humiliate them, or offend them, and pratishta, the desire for fame. And these are the root cause of everything. So I will just read little also. As mentioned earlier, a very important principle is that if there is one anartha left, then all the others will retain. And this anartha, the desire for fame, may be seemingly harmless. It makes us study the scriptures, become very renounced, preach, and perform extraordinary feast in our devotional service. Yet Kavi Karna cites this problem in the Chaitanya Chandrodaya Natak, where he says, quote, if one thing has remained, all the rest will come back, unquote. People who have pratishtha will be offending the Vaishnavas. They will in one way or other find all possible faults and rejoice. Therefore, the essence of Vaishnava ethics is humility. And by no means should we let that pratishtha, the desire for fame, which is somewhere there in each of us, become manifest. It can remain until the very end. Sanatana Goswami says, quote, just don't touch it. It will go away. Just go on serving humbly. If this humility is there, then the mercy of Krishna and the devotee will come to you. When there is a humility, mercy comes in a natural way. We will then be safe, and the holy name will be with us all the time. The Vaishnavas will be with us, and our spiritual experiences, the experience of love, will grow deeper and deeper. If we read Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan Das Thakur has again and again says, quote, if you see a Vaishnava, bow down to him. If you can't bow down, then at least bow down to him in your mind. If you see a Vaishnava, be glad to see him, unquote. He says that the person should have this one quality, not to distinguish between Vaishnavas. Very difficult task, but this is what our Acharya has recommended. Not judging them and not saying, quote, this Vaishnava is at that level of advancement. That one is there and I'm here, unquote. If we consider all Vaishnavas to be above ourselves, we will go directly to Krishna. Further on, he says, quote, if a person doesn't bow his head before the Vaishnavas, then that head will bring him to hell, unquote. Behind all the possible offenses, there is one single thing that eventually destroyed our consciousness and prevent us from chanting the holy name. It is very important in our dealings with the Vaishnavas to first consider each Vaishnava above ourselves. If we think, quote, he is my Guru, Krishna has sent him to teach me something. If I consider him my Guru, my teacher, I can learn something very important from him. And this is very nice. You know, whenever we remember the Gunagrahi Maharaj, the name itself is Gunagrahi, looking for the good things in everyone. And in the scripture also it has mentioned we should have so many gurus. We can actually learn from every living being. That is not a single living entity you will find that Krishna has not endowed a specific quality that nobody else has it. But we need to have a vision to realize that fact. Unless we become humble, it would be very difficult. Only thing we will keep on doing is looking the faults. That's all we will do. If someone comes up to you and start criticizing another Vaishnavas, tell that person, good, I have to do something very urgent. I have to run, unquote. Run far away, because when we hear offenses against others, our respect for the Vaishnava diminishes, whether we want it or not. Hare Krishna. And we have seen it happens no matter how hard you try. It's very difficult to maintain that respect. Therefore, we must not commit offenses ourselves, but we also must not hear offenses against the Vaishnavas. If we see a fault in a person, I should think, God, why do I see this fault? It is because I also have the same fault, unquote. Then Pratishta will go away. Wonderful instructions, very prominent. So we have finished this commentary by Bhakti Vigyan Goswami, and from tomorrow we will do all the commentary by Urmila Devidase. So we will dwell in the life of Srila Prabhupada. We can learn so many things. We are on volume number 4, chapter number 6, title Jet Egg Paribrajakacharya. Title. And let me see where we left. Yes. June, it's a new topic. June 1971. For months, Prabhupada had been planning to visit Moscow. Aside from his desire to preach to the Russian people, he had a specific meeting in mind with a Russian Indology professor, G. Kotovsky. Professor Kotovsky headed the Department of Indian and South Asian Study at Moscow's USSR Academy of Sciences, and Prabhupada had been corresponding with him for a year. Krishnadas in West Germany, with the help of a Dr. Bernhard of the University of Hamburg, had obtained the names of other Russian scholars of Indology. A letter to Krishnadas in December of 1970 had revealed Prabhupada's plan for preaching in Russia. I'm very encouraged to see your enthusiasm for preaching this message to the Russian people. And your idea to send letters with the help of Dr. Bernhardt is very good. He is a big scholar and he also appreciates our movement. So, if you arrange a tour of Russia for me, I'm prepared to accept. Let us see what Krishna's desired. Haribol. If we can go to Russia with our World Sankirtan party, I'm certain that it will be very much appreciated and people will see the real peace movement is chanting process, chanting the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So try for it. How much patience Prabhupada has, no anxiety whatsoever. Totally working under the will of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. Completely satisfied in all circumstances. Srila Prabhupada had coached Krishnadas on how to best cultivate the Russian Indologists. You can ask them some question like, what is the ultimate goal of life? What is your ideal ultimate goal of life? What is the difference between animal and human life? Why is religion accepted by all kind of civilized societies? What is your conceptions of the original creation? In this way, question may be put to find out what is their standing. We do not grudge an atheist provided he has got some philosophical standing. In this way, try to elicit some answers from the professors. If you can finally establish one Moscow center, it will be a great credit to you. So far studying Russian language, it is not necessary. But if you do it, it is all right. I want very much a center in Russia. So for the time being, I shall desire that Moscow center. What a clear instructions. In March of 1971, Professor G.G. Kodovsky had replied to Krishnadas' letter as follows. I thank you for your information about Swami Bhaktivedant's lecturing tour. If he would come to Moscow, the Soviet scholars doing research in ancient Indian culture would be very happy to meet him in the Institute of Oriental Studies, USSR Academy of Sciences. I would be thankful to you for your information on the dates of Swami Bhaktivedanta's arrival and stay in USSR. Srila Prabhupada had personally replied to Professor Kodovsky as follows. It was understood that you and your university are interested in hearing about Krishna culture and philosophy. This ancient Krishna culture and philosophy is the oldest in the world or in the universe. At least from a historical point of view, it is not less than 5,000 years old. Perhaps you may know that I have started this cultural movement since 1966, and it is already spreading all over the world. Krishna culture is so popular in India that even the government attracts many foreigners by Air India timetable to visit Vrindavan, the land of Krishna culture. Enclose, please find one page from the latest Air India timetable, April 1971, where the Krishna culture is depicted for general attraction. My life is dedicated to spreading this Krishna culture all over the world. I think if you give me a chance to speak about the great Krishna culture and philosophy in your country, you will very much appreciate this simple program with great profit. This culture is so well planned that it would be acceptable by any thoughtful man throughout the whole world. Having preached a year in the Eastern Hemisphere, Prabhupada was eager to return to the West, and he planned to fly to Moscow and on to Europe. For Prabhupada and his traveling companions, Shyam Sundar and Arvinda, getting tourist visas for Russia was simple. They would take a 5-day government controlled tour with every activity planned by the Soviet Tourist Bureau and everything paid for in advance. Captain Lal, the pilot of the flight to Moscow, considered Prabhupada an important passenger and came back to visit him during the flight. They spoke of Prabhupada's movement, his chances for lecturing in Moscow, and of Bombay, where Prabhupada was trying to purchase land. Captain Lal invited Prabhupada to the cockpit, and Prabhupada came and sat beside the captain, asking technical questions about the equipment and the flight. Prabhupada and Captain Lal agreed to meet again in Moscow. Prabhupada, his secretary, and his servant cleared Soviet custom and immigration quickly and smoothly, and a government tourist guide escorted them by limousine to the Hotel National. The hotel near Red Square, Lenin's tomb, and the Kremlin was expensive but plain. Prabhupada found his room dingy and cramped, with barely space for a bed and 2 chairs. The room for Shyam Sundar and Arvinda was far away, and Prabhupada decided that Arvinda should share the room with him instead, crowding Prabhupada's room all the more. What a simplicity Prabhupada has. Arvinda told the hotel manager that they would not eat the hotel fare but would have to cook their own meals. The manager refused at first, but finally allowed them use of the maid's kitchen. That problem solved. The next was getting food. Prabhupada sent Shyam Sundar out across the street, and Shyam Sundar found a milk and yogurt store. But he returned to Prabhupada's room without any fruits, vegetables, or rice. Prabhupada sent him out again, and this time Shyam Sundar was gone practically all day, returning with only a couple of cabbages. Prabhupada sent him out the next day for rice. When Shyam Sundar returned with rice after several hours, Prabhupada saw that it was a poor North Korean variety, very hard. Prabhupada asked for fruit, but Shyam Sundar had to hike for a miles through the city to find anything fresh. If you read cherries, wherever, oh, these messages always come up. Nothing is free in this world. Haribol. Prabhupada asked him fruit, but Shamsundar had to hike for a miles through the city to find anything fresh. If you read cherries, the day we went to the Costco and we got some cherries to offer to our deities, and it is so sweet and nice. I really liked it because it's a prasadam. Wherever Shamsundar went, he would have to stand in long queue to purchase anything. Usually, however, someone in the queue would notice that he was a tourist and bring him to the front of the line. What a wonderful etiquette they are exhibiting. Very well. We have to really learn this etiquette. You see on the Sunday feast line and all other things, we didn't follow that etiquette. Everything Shamsundar purchased was with coupons. Prabhupada remained peaceful and regulated, keeping to his daily schedule. This is important, right? No matter how the circumstances was there, Prabhupada maintained his schedule. He would rise early and translate, and in the cool of early morning, he would go out for a walk through the all but deserted streets. Prabhupada, wearing a saffron chadar, strode quickly, Shamsundar sometime running ahead to photograph him. As they would pass Lenin's museums, a queue would already be forming. Just see, Prabhupada commented one morning, quote, that is their God. The people don't understand the difference between the body and the spirit. They accept the body as the real person, unquote. Prabhupada appreciated the sparseness of the traffic. Some trolleys and bicycles, but mostly pedestrians. As he walked among the old ornate buildings, he saw elderly women hoovering the wide streets, a good practice, he said. The Russian people appear to live structured, regulated lives, much more so than the Americans. These simple, austere people, unspoiled by the rampant hedonism so common in America, were fertile for Krishna consciousness. But devoid of spiritual sustenance, they appeared morose. Prabhupada had Shamsundar arrange a meeting with Professor Kodowsky and invite Captain Lal to come along. The tourist bureau provided a car and a guide, and Prabhupada and his party rode outside the city to Professor Kodowsky's office in an old white brick building at the Academy of Sciences. When Prabhupada arrived, the middle-aged Russian professor, dressed in a grey suit, got up from his cluttered desk and welcomed Prabhupada into his small office. Professor Kodowsky appeared a bit hesitant, however, more cautious than in his letters. When Shamsundar mentioned Prabhupada's eagerness to lecture before interested scholars at the academy, Professor Kodowsky flatly refused. It would never be allowed, and Prabhupada was disappointed. The next moment, however, Prabhupada seemed unaffected and began speaking in his humble gentle manner, sitting in a straight back office chair beside Professor Kotowski, who sat at his desk. Shyamsundar turned on the tape recorder, which the professor eyed cautiously but didn't object to. Prabhupada, quote, the other day I was reading in the paper Moscow News. There was a communist congress and the president declared that we are ready to get others' experiences to improve. So I think the Vedic concept of socialism or communism will much improve the idea of communism. Unquote. Professor Kodowski listened intently and politely as his foreign visitor explained how the Grihastha in Vedic culture provide for everyone living in his house, even for the lizards, and bow before taking his meal. He calls in the road to invite any hungry person to come and eat. Quote, in this way, unquote, Prabhupada explained, there are so many good concepts about the socialist idea of communism. So I thought that this idea might have been distributed to some of your thoughtful men. Therefore, I was anxious to speak. Unquote. Professor Kodowski's academic interest was piqued. Quote, you know, it is interesting, quote, he said. His articulate English heavily accented. As it is here in our country, there is now great interest in the history of old thought, unquote. He described the accomplishment of his colleagues and himself, particularly a booklet they had recently prepared highlighting Soviet studies in Indology. He said he would like to give a copy to Prabhupada. Professor Kodowski is explaining in his own language. Quote, you will be interested to discover that we publish not all but some Puranas, then some part of the Ramayana, 8 volumes in Russian of Mahabharata, and also a second edition of the Mahabharata, translated by different people in full and published. Manusmriti is also translated in full and published with Sanskrit commentaries. And such was the great interest that all of these publications were sold in a week. They are now completely out of stock. It is impossible to get them in the book market after a month. Such a great interest among reading people here in Moscow and the USSR toward ancient Vedic culture, unquote. So Prabhupada is responding. Among these Puranas, the Srimad Bhagavatam is called the Mahapurana. And he told of his own translation of Srimad Bhagavatam, the ripened fruit of the Vedic desire tree. He would show some volumes to the professor if he was interested. Professor Kodowski said the Moscow and Leningrad libraries had nearly all the major texts of Indian culture in Sanskrit. These libraries house not only ancient texts, but more recent literature as well, comprising an up-to-date study of Hinduism. Hinduism? Prabhupada interrupted. quote, "It is a very complex topic," unquote. And they both laughed. Professor Kodovsky acknowledged that Hinduism was more than a religion, it was a way of life. But Prabhupada explained that the name Hindu was actually a misnomer. The real term to explain Vedic culture was Varnashram. Briefly, Prabhupada described the four orders: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra. Professor Korowski, quote, "You have told that in any society there are four divisions, but it is not so easy to distinguish. For instance, one can group together different social classes and professional groups into four divisions in any society. There is no difficulty. The only difficulty is, for instance, in socialist society, in our country and other socialist societies, how can you distinguish productive group and workers?" I think we have reached the time. We should be punctual in our practice. So we should stop here. And before the Vaishnavas leave, we would like to offer our humble obeisances at the desk of these wonderful Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. It's, there is no word of appreciating your association. It's so ennobling. My day always hanker to have the association of all these devotees so we can chant so clearly, nicely, and make our lives slowly and slowly purifying. So it's my great fortune I found, and some of them are so steadfast. Like I can see that Divya Mataji was so dedicated, and I told her that, "Mataji, please do not join for some time. Please take care of your family." But I saw that she took that service that she will record our session at 4:30 Monday and Friday. We have a group of these admin groups. They share this responsibility. And despite this, she just joined to record the session, which is really commendable. I hope that she can bring the peace into her family. But we have to be very practical also. So I wish her all the best, and I always pray for her that Krishna can grant her the atmosphere in which she can relish what need to be relished in the human form of life, the holy name of Krishna. So may Krishna and holy name bless her. And also I would like to offer my humble obeisances to all other Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis by saying the prayer, Vanchakalpatarubhasya Kipasindhuvaya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.